And you are live on the Joy News channel here on Multi TV. This is a special edition of the Joy News Desk. We are going to come to you very shortly live from Parliament. It's a big day in our history. In fact, history is going to be made today. We're going to have our first special prosecutor coming before the Appointments Committee of Parliament. Martin Amidu will be vetted very, very shortly. And this is our build-up to the commencement of that vetting. That vetting that has so far in the last 24 hours been shrouded in a thick mud of controversy. We're going to unpack all that for you in the next hour before the vetting begins. We're going to be live on Joy 99.7 FM. We're going to be speaking to the experts who understand what is going to happen. We're also going to be telling you about what the law really says about the Special Prosecutor's Office and what to expect going into today's vetting, with all the controversies surrounding the vetting. In fact, even as we speak, it's unclear whether or not that committee will go ahead with the vetting as planned. And just before we came on, we got confirmation that the Appointments Committee has called a meeting just before the commencement of the vetting itself. The consideration has been made, considering the suit that was filed yesterday, plus also a petition that had come in. Remember that Martin Amidu and sources have confirmed to us he's not even aware of that petition. He needs to see a copy before it goes in. A lot of moving parts this morning that will be considered. You want to stay with us because we'll walk you through every single detail leading into this vetting and whether it will happen or not. Stay with us here on the Joy News Desk. My name is Evan Spencer. And my colleague, Elton Brobe, will join us shortly from Parliament. He has the very latest on what is happening on the ground there in Parliament as the committee, the Appointments Committee, goes into a meeting preparing for the vetting to begin. We understand at 11. So we have a whole hour to build up to it. And we'll be going through a lot that has been happening over the last 24 hours. And I'm joined in the studio by my colleague, Raymond Aqua. We'll be together with myself. We're going through this whole preparation, building up to what is going to happen today and at 11 o'clock. Plus, a lot has happened in the last 24 hours, Raymond. A lot has happened. We're talking about the suit that was filed at 12:50 p.m. yesterday at the Supreme Court, challenging the eligibility of Martin Amidu to hold that position. In fact, the former Deputy Attorney General who filed this is also the MP for Bolga East, Dr. Dominic Ayine. In that particular suit is arguing that Martin Amidu is not qualified to hold that position as Special Prosecutor. He's going to be the Ghana's first Special Prosecutor. This is the first time somebody is going to be vetted for that position already. There's a lot happening whether or not he can hold that position. Plus, there is a petition. The petition itself, the contents are pretty interesting. Several allegations being made there. One of the allegations border on his age, same as the case that has gone to the Supreme Court. But there are other issues being raised in that particular petition, including the fact that Martin Amidu has sort of withdrawn his membership of the NDC and has applied to be a member of the MPP. The reason why that is important is that the Act establishing the Special Prosecutor's Office states categorically that the individual who can qualify to hold that position should be non-partisan. And that's on the basis on which Chris Akume has raised that point about the fact that the man has applied to be a member of a political party, which is the MPP. That, in essence, raises his partisanship. There's an allegation, I guess the one that we also need to clarify this morning, which is the fact that the man, Martin Amidu, is currently, he argues, he's acting capriciously. He's erratic. There's also a question about his mental state. In fact, he's asked the committee, the Appointments Committee and Parliament to get psychiatric evaluation for the man. Raymond, these are very interesting things to raise about the man. But let's start, I guess, with the big one, which is the suit that has been filed by the Supreme Court. Yeah. Now, yesterday when we spoke to Dominic Ayine. His argument is it is his expectation that Parliament, the Appointments Committee, will suspend today's vetting because of the principle that once a process is started in court, you do not want to engage in anything that will be prejudicial to the eventual outcome.
Yeah.
That is a tricky place to start.
Yes, and of course, I mean, this is not the only legal opinion on that particular one. The school of thought is two in this case. The other one says, to the extent that you know what you are doing can be undone quickly by the court, you can still go ahead in this case. But Parliament mostly has been hinted to respect the law courts because they are two institutions of state, and the respect goes in the way that they would suspend ordinarily. But there's an indication that goes beyond the law in this case. Now, a government seeks, among other things, to put together a special prosecutors bill. It was supposed to come in last year. Last year, we didn't get the office being set up and the person appointed. This is a fresh year. If the case is going to travel in court for the next 2 or 3 years, this particular office will be held in abeyance. You get what I'm trying to say? So the political angle to all of this is that why don't you go ahead? That if the Supreme Court, which has the final say on the matter, invalidates his appointment, the entire process becomes a nullity. When it becomes a nullity, you start afresh, as has been done in some cases before. So it's one way, respecting some legal opinion that says that so far as before court, don't touch it. On the other side, respecting the opinion that says that he did not even seek an injunction. So he rarely expected the natural sequence of activities to follow in this particular case. So far as he's not seeking to put an injunction on this activity, why don't we go ahead and allow the court to do its work? Mindful of, one, the duty that's supposed to be performed by the person in this office. Two, the impact of his continuous stay, not in office in this particular case. So those are the issues that are coming up. And the committee, one, is predominated by the majority. So if it's merely a vote, the majority will have their way. Two, the president, and it's obvious to the majority that this is an important position, and the person occupying the position makes it even more important. Don't forget, he's been described as the wise and prudent person. The decision to appoint him himself has also been heralded by all of those in civil society. I have not heard a single person in civil society opposing this particular thing.
In fact, there are people in the opposition and DC who applaud the president for appointing him.
Yunus Afuseni, for instance.
Yunus Afuseni, yeah, exactly, had said that until Martin Amidu's appointment, he had sort of lost hope in the president's ability to fight corruption.
Yeah.
And then Martin Amidu was appointed, and they sort of gave him the renewed confidence that at least we are getting there.
Yeah.
And so even among the NDC, there is a certain divide. The party issued a statement last week cautioning the Appointments Committee to be mindful of the national interest. But in that same statement, they had raised concerns. They had raised concerns about Martin Amidu's vindictiveness, which, by the way, has found in the petition directly has found a way into the petition before the Appointments Committee, which is interesting. And so clearly go into this. There's a divide, and watch something that also happened. A confirmation we got yesterday. The fundamental evidence that Dominic Ayine is relying on for his suit is Martin Amidu's CV, which is submitted to the Appointments Committee. Now, and possibly that's one of the reasons that influenced the late filing of this case. Okay. They were waiting for Martin Amidu
to officially submit on record
the CV, and then use that as a basis to file this case. Guess who gave the CV to Dominic Ayine? It is the Minority Chief Whip, Muntaka Mubarak, who himself is a leading member of the Appointments Committee.
Who has also stated that they will go ahead with the vetting in any case.
Exactly. And Dominic Ayine confirms to us that when the CV was submitted by Martin Amidu to the committee, then he gets a call from Muntaka Mubarak, who says they want to co-opt him to be a member of the Appointments Committee because of his legal expertise. Yeah. And by virtue of that intention, they needed now to furnish him with all the documentation the committee has.
Okay, so to seal the loophole, that why are you submitting what is privileged information to a committee, to an outsider of this committee? That's an interesting development.
Very interesting. We'll shortly pull up the suit Martin Amidu, Dominic Ayine filed on the Supreme Court for you, and we'll go through some of the key things he's seeking.
And his lawyer.
And his lawyer as well, Tony Litha, right?
Yes.
But let's go to Parliament right now. Let's go to Parliament. Let's join my colleague, Elton Brobe, who is standing by with the very latest on what is happening there in Parliament as we wait for the hearing, the vetting to start. Elton, if you're on the line, we got word that the committee is in some sort of a closed-door session just prior to this vetting to begin. What more are we learning from this meeting?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. The committee is in a meeting. It is custom with them that they meet before the public hearing. The meeting essentially talks about how they hope to approach the vetting. If they have issues, if there's any issue before them that should require the consideration of the committee or the nominee, this will be the time for them to consider it and then put the issue before the nominee. Mostly about petitions against the candidature of the nominee. If there's any before them right now, what they are doing now is to now consider the merits of that particular petition before they come to the plenary and have that particular discussion. Now, what I can tell you for a fact is that I had a chat with the chairman of the committee, First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Osewusu, and asked him whether there's a formal petition before the committee's consideration regarding Mr. Martin Amidu. Now, what he told me, at the time I spoke to him, that was around 9:45 a.m. No petition had come before him as chairman of the committee for the consideration of the appointment committee of Parliament. Now, he told me that he heard on radio yesterday about a supposed petition put together by legal practitioner Chris Akume. But as far as the committee is concerned, no such petition has come before the appointment committee for them to, speak to the nominee about. So they are operating under the assumption that there's no formal petition before the appointment committee for the consideration of the committee. The only issue that I have is this, legal challenge regarding the age of Mr. Martin Amidu. And that's a matter for the Speaker to take a decision on. Once the Speaker has directed the appointment committee to vet the suitability of Martin Amidu for the position he's been nominated for by the President. That's exactly what they will be doing this morning. And the vetting is starting at exactly 11 a.m. At 10 a.m., they'll go to the Chamber of Parliament for them to have their normal procedural matters. They will adjourn at exactly 11. All of them will move to the appointment committee room for the vetting to start. Let me emphasize again that as far as the appointment committee is concerned, the chairman of the committee says there's no formal petition before them for them to, get the nominee to respond to. So they will come in without any petition and they'll go through the process as it's always been. But in the room, the conference room of Parliament House, family members have already gathered and they've taken their seats. As you can see, the vetting or the committee room is vacant, because the members of the appointment committee are yet to make their way into the room for the process to start. But let me speak to some people who have come here to support Mr. Martin Amidu. It's very interesting. The person I have here is a former member of parliament for Garu, Dominic Azuma Azimbe.
That's right.
And he's here to support Mr. Martin Amidu. Let me find out for him. You've come all the way from Garu to support Mr. Martin Amidu. The question is why?
Well, thank you so much. That's quite true. I came all the way from Garu about 2 weeks ago after the announcement was made. I've been a personal friend to Amidu. I've worked very closely with him in the Upper East, especially in the NDC, from 1992. Indeed, he was in the revolutionary structures with me when we were running around the villages in Kulungungu and Mognore to prevent smuggling and all those things. So we've known ourselves for far too long. And having worked with him closely, I thought that the president has done the right choice. Consensus all over the country is that he's picked the right person. And I thought that it is only fair that everybody come together to give him support, because he's going to do a national assignment.
It is very interesting because some members from your party, they raise issues about the conduct and the approach Mr. Martin Amidu adopted during the John Mahama administration. You appear to have utmost confidence in his ability to do this job.
Yeah, that's right. There are two different things here. Martin's personal issues with the political party must be different from an assignment given to him to run in a country. There are two different things. And so my party, and for that matter, some individuals in my party may have an issues with Amidu. That is their personal matters separately. Martin has been nominated by His Excellency the President, not based on party lines, on his individual merit. And so Martin should be given the support based on his individual performance. I have known Martin, who has been the Attorney General all these years. And believe me, he is one of those persons who, if he believes in the truth, he will stand by the truth. If he knows that there's no truth in it, no matter who you are, he would shame you. He would tell you your right face, this is a matter I will not pursue. And so I think that we should not be worried too much about it. The assignment given to Martin, and why I think that I support him, is he's going to do prosecution, right?
Right.
He's not going to be the judge to sentence people.
Absolutely.
And so unless he's able to present a very strong case that the judge is convinced, and you cannot be sentenced. And so I think that for the benefit of the law, let's allow Martin to perform, and we'll judge him from his performance, but not on a political matter.
His suitability for the job will soon be tested by members of the appointment committee, and then Parliament as a whole will take a decision whether to confirm his nomination. If he's approved by Parliament, he will go in to prosecute corrupt cases.
That's right.
You've known him. How incorruptible is he from your experience?
I have known Martin ever since his useful age with Asimboko. And the way you see Martin today is the way Martin started his life. And I can bet you, unless something that has happened in the dark and I don't know, I can attest to the credibility of Martin to a very highest level. I can attest to that. I have dealt with him back. I've dealt with him when he was in the revolution. I've dealt with him when he was Deputy Attorney General. I've dealt with him when he was in the Ministry of Interior. I dealt with him when he was in Attorney General Department. And believe me, I can testify. And that is why sometimes when he goes into a matter and he's convinced that there's every fact of the matter and people are attempting to push it under the water, he will fight it all to a certain level. That's the character he is. And so I don't think that, but one good thing is that if Martin also, no matter who, even if he's your enemy, and he thinks you are right in your case, he will come to your defense till anything.
Because that's exactly the next question I'm coming to about the neutrality that is expected of him if he's approved, and the fact that his appointment came from this administration. Are you of the firm belief that he will be just and right, regardless of who appointed him?
I think that is exactly what the president looked at, that this is a man who has been in a different political party. His behavior and everything has shown that he's upright. From their point, they also believe in him and trust in him. And so they are giving him that assignment. And I bet you, in my chat with Martin a few days ago, he told me one very important matter. He told me clearly that, look, if you are clean and nothing you have to hide, I don't believe that I'll hand you to that level and think that I will sentence you to it. I don't have those powers. And so everybody should believe that. And I'm not ready to entertain frivolous matters. Okay. That's why he used the word. I'm not ready to entertain frivolous issues.
So since you spoke to him some few days ago, is he worried about this latest challenge to his candidature regarding his age?
He's very, very cool because, I mean, he's explaining the legal aspect of it to me. And I'm convinced that, once the Supreme Court is to rule, he said at that point of his explanation, he will leave it to the Supreme Court to decide. So the public can all make their own guesses, but he believes that at the end of the day, he will be vindicated.
So what should the general public expect from him before I let you go, Mr. Azuma?
I expect a very good vetting. I expect the nominee to perform above level. He's very good. He's gone through these vettings. I think in 93 he was there. In 97 he was there. 2005 he was there. 2009 he was there. So you see, he's been through all these things, and he's known the members of this committee, and I expect a very good performance. I also expect the veteran members to put the questions that are very relevant, not any other thing. I have served in this appointments committee for a while, and I'm sure the chairman will not entertain any frivolous questions and those questions that will not have any relationship to do with his job. But I'm sure they're going to concentrate clearly on issues relating to the job and how best he can perform. And I expect him to go above level and perform very excellently well.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dominic Azuma Zimbe, former Member of Parliament for Garu, and he's been sharing his own relationship with Mr. Martin Amidu, the nominee, who is set to appear before the appointment committee. I'll leave you to go and have your seat, and we're all here to watch it. But Evans, the interesting thing I'm seeing here is some former cadres of the NDC
who are here to also join in the support for Mr. Martin Amidu as far as this particular vetting is concerned. Cletus Avoka is a former majority leader, he's a former member of parliament, he's seated among the supporters who have come here to support Mr. Martin Amidu. Also interesting is a legal practitioner, Mr. Ajay Ampofo, a former Omanhene of Goso, traditional area in the Brona Hafo region, a former council of state member during the NDC administration. He is also here to support Mr. Martin Amidu. Now, what is now holding everybody back is the fact that the appointment committee members are in a closed-door session deciding on an approach to adopt when they come in to vet the nominee. Again, let me emphasize here that the chairman of the committee, Joe Osewusu, the first deputy speaker of parliament, told me that as of now, there's no formal petition before them. But if a petition is brought to their attention before they sit in public, he will announce it to the gathering, but will restrain members from commenting on the petition because of the fact that they will not have had opportunity to read through it, and the fact that the petition may not have been given to the nominee to also study. So very soon we'll speak to some of the supporters who are here and to gauge their expectation ahead of the vetting events.
Stay with us, because one of the things I want to explore is this division between, clearly, the division between the minority side of the committee and the majority side of the committee, led by the chair of the appointments committee himself. Because yesterday, Muntaka Mubarak confirmed that he has a copy of the petition submitted by Chris Akume. In fact, he read from it.
No, it's gone out. It's gone out. It's gone out.
But also admitted that the chairman of the committee was in Kumasi and on his way to Accra, and that they will meet this morning, and he's pretty sure that at that meeting, all the members will get a copy of this. I don't know what sense you're getting from the minority side as far as the petition is concerned. I mean, since Joe Osewusu, he hasn't seen it, there's nothing formally before him, but I get any sense from the minority side?
You see, the issue about this petition by Mr. Chris Akume is that I was actually in the first deputy speaker's office before he walked in to begin his day in Parliament. Now, when he walked in, I was actually at his reception. The first question he's asked, he inquired from the secretary whether anybody has brought a letter for him, and then the clerk to the committee was also there, and then he asked the clerk the same question. The answer he got was that no petition has come as far as Mr. Martin Amidu's vetting is concerned. That the only letter that was awaiting his attention was that from the judicial service asking him to come to chair a fundraising activity they are hoping to hold next week. So regarding the petition, from the interaction that went on at the reception of Mr. Joe Osewusu, no such thing had come for his consideration. But the committee is meeting. Probably they may have the opportunity to have this particular issue, because from the way things are going, it appears that the minority members seem to have a copy of this particular petition, but that petition has yet to be given to the clerk to the committee, because the clerk will have it, make photocopy, and then send it across to members on the committee for them to meet before they come and sit in public to have this particular consideration. The minority side themselves held their own meeting. Now they are meeting the closed-door session before they walk into the conference room of Parliament for them to have this vetting. But the information is also that they may go to the chamber before they come here at exactly 11 for the vetting to start.
Elton will stay with us, but there's something in it, Elton, that also I've noticed from the guest list you've just told us about, those who are there to support Martin Amidu. And if you look at the caliber of people, Cletus Avoka, the former MP, Azuma, and the others, they appear to belong to a certain stock of the NDC. Because if you look at the party itself, I mean, and remember, I don't know if it's fair to say this, but clearly from what you're seeing, you see a clear divide. Even within the NDC, there's a divide. I mean, those who are loyalists of former President George Rawlings,
yes,
who clearly, from what we're just seeing, and Elting has been saying there, are then in numbers to support Martin Amidu. And note, Martin Amidu has said yesterday that if I didn't invite you, don't come. So clearly, he has invited specifically targeted individuals he wants to be there to support it. Okay. Now, the party has a statement that says, we have an issue with the man. We think he's vindictive.
Yet members of the party.
And if you look at publicly, those who are criticizing him,
Senior members.
there are people who most who say are loyalists of, say, the John Mahama side of the divide.
Yes.
Now, the reason why I'm saying this is, if you look at Martin Amidu's CV, which he submitted to Parliament, he cites 2 references there. And Raymond, tell us those he cites it as his reference.
The first person in this particular list is the former president, Jerry John Rawlings.
Yes.
And this is the first person because, I mean, he believes that that can be a major reference for him. Then he also cites a former judge in this particular case. And this particular former judge has been a judge for a very long time.
And that's Honorable Justice J.C. Amonumoni. He's a former Director of Public Prosecutions, former Justice of the Court of Appeal.
Yes, so these are the people that are referenced in this, and these are people who are known to have roots in the PNDC.
Yeah. And the fact that he chose Jerry Rawlings to start with tells a story about his how loyal he is to the man. But again, even going beyond the CV, in inviting people to his vetting, he selected and carefully chosen people who believe in probity, accountability, the tenets of the PNDC.
And more importantly, the ACDRs, who are cadres known.
Yeah,
I mean,
and Elton mentioned that.
Yes,
a lot of
these
the cadres
cadres, the history behind the cadres is that these are people who rose up to defend the revolution. I mean, their actual names, the Committee for the Defense of the Revolution. Yeah. So these are people who actually are strong supporters of Jerry Rawlings, right from the AFRC times, through the PNDC time, through when he transitioned into democracy and became president. And these are diehard supporters. In fact, there are those that Martin Amidu, when he lighted the flame, when they did their, what called 31st December commemoration, said are the true NDC, the probity, accountability, real people who have supported the cause all through. So you draw the line clearly. This is a section that's being supported strongly by friends, family, and people who support former President Rawlings. Now, the dichotomy is also clear. On the other side, those who are pushing for this particular one through the suit, through the petition, are also adherents and supporters of former President
in fact,
John Dramani Mahama.
We have John Mahama's lawyer.
Yes.
As lawyer for Dominic Ayino, who's filed the suit.
So this is a clear-cut division in the NDC on strength struggles on the appointment. And this, of course, we know that this has played out in several other platforms, but this is being taken to an office that is such an important one. It's unclear whether the real decision is to just get the man off the seat. But it is clear that they are sending a signal to you. Don't forget, there's a petition before the NDC currently, which is seeking, among other things, that Mr. Martin Amidu ought to be punished.
Yeah, and to that point, we got a sense of, and Martin Amidu had appeared before the disciplinary committee, right? And from what we hear, when he appeared before the disciplinary committee, and it is part of the reason why Chris Akume had stated in his petition to the committee, which is not being disputed, that it's even not there formally. And Elton said something which is quite instructive, that even the clerk of parliament, for the committee says he's not aware of any petition. So,
in fact, the letters most are written to the clerk.
Yes.
Clerk says with the majority or minority who else deserves attention on that particular notice. So the man who is virtually the secretary and supposed to receive it has not seen it. But the minority can quote from this same letter.
Copiously. and it's not just any ordinary minority member. This is the minority chief whip.
A very important part of the committee.
A leading member of the committee had a copy, read from it, and yet the clerk says, I haven't seen the copy. The chairman says, I have not seen the copy. That tells his own story. That the committee itself, as of this moment, is divided. We'll see how, once they emerge from that meeting, possibly, but it's not, the thing that beats me is it that Chris Akume submitted a petition to Muntaka Mubarak?
I mean, I think he's a lawyer of a very long standing.
He would have known what the procedure is.
Law before, so the understanding is that he will be in a better position to appreciate the process. And if so, those who are even sponsoring or supporting his cause would have showed him the right process. It is possible that the clerk will not know. It is possible that, but it will be very strange that this will happen because he should send it to the clerk first, and not the members. In fact, distribution to members is done by the clerk.
It's done by the clerk. So, the clerk would have informed them this morning before they went to the meeting.
What we could also check is Parliament receives letters. There is actually a role that you record at the point of receipt of this letter where the clerk would have actually seen it.
Yeah.
So we will get to know whether indeed he went through that process.
Yeah.
And that would have been sufficient. In fact, if the clerk, the parliament received the letter, and in some way, somehow, the minority seem to have seen it first before the other side.
That even will raise concerns.
Yes, if he followed the right process, then we'll be left in asking how is it possible that the clerk as secretary to the committee cannot be
and we must emphasize the procedure alone could be ground for dismissing that petition.
Yeah.
The procedure alone, if the procedure was not followed, that is enough ground for the chairman of the committee to insist that this is not properly before us.
And you have done vettings before where some people have brought up issues like that and said,
Yes.
no, this has never been before us, it's never been
And
properly
ultimately,
before us.
he said he was there when the chairman of the committee was about to start his day. And he happened to be in that same room with the clerk of parliament.
Yeah.
When Joseph Owusu asked the clerk, have you seen it? He says, I have not. And this was at the start of the day, early this morning. And so, well, we wait to see.
The process also
emerge from that
dictates
meeting.
that, for example, even when the committee has seen it, Mr. Amidu said you must hear from a man before you judge him. Ought to have been given a copy of this particular petition.
And as of last night, we had checked resources close to Martin Amidu.
He hasn't received any. So if the vetting is going to happen at 10, there's a high probability that this particular petition and this content will not be before the vetting committee.
Yes, and from what I understand, two things can happen. One more likely than the other. The more likely scenario that will play out is the committee will go ahead and go ahead with the vetting, but it will not entertain any question on the petition.
Yes.
The second scenario, which is most unlikely, is that they will have to adjourn the entire sitting until Martin Amidu is fully briefed, which I think wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I think they'll simply go ahead with the vetting. In fact, the specter of this going into a second day is very possible, because if Martin Amidu, if questions on the petition are not entertained today, it just means Martin Amidu will have to be given time to go and study and return for a second bout of question, which possibly will then focus entirely on this
petition.
Secondly, we are learning that the chairman had said in another brief meeting with the committee that he's not going to entertain any questions that will bother on the suit has been filed at the Supreme Court, because that'll be prejudicial. Himself is a lawyer, so he knows better. And so anything that comes about Martin Amidu's age will not be entertained at the vetting today, possibly.
But this is on the CV.
There's
interrogation that's supposed to be done on the CV.
On the CV, yeah. Well,
so, I mean, you have to skip the part of the age and pose questions on issues related to the CV without necessarily touching on that particular issue before
Well, and you know how politicians do? They find ingenious ways of going around this. So I'm pretty sure somebody will try. With many people
ask him to read the biodata on his CV.
Exactly, and I'm pretty sure this might find its way into this. But we'll go back to Elton shortly when there's something substantive to report. Once the committee members begin to emerge, we'll go there very shortly and then bring in the latest. We'll also be speaking to some lawyers who understand what is happening. But let's quickly go through the suit that was filed by Dominic Ayine and the key things that he's asking. A lot of it sounds similar. Raymond, if you have a copy of what he's seeking, and you can see it on our television.
Okay, so
also.
So many of the issues he's raising, I mean, he gives history to why he thinks this is a very important one. He also gives the background to it, but the specific reliefs he is seeking are that he wants specifically a declaration that by reason of his age, and he puts it to the bracket, 66 years, Mr. Martin Amidu is not qualified or eligible to be nominated as a special prosecutor under Section 13(3) of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act, 2018, Act 959. He proceeds to demand a declaration that by reason of his age, is also not qualified or eligible to be approved by Parliament, which is going to happen today as he starts the process, as a special prosecutor under Section 13(3) of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act. And he also wants a declaration that by reason of his age, Mr. Martin Amidu is not qualified to be appointed by His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, as a special prosecutor on this case. In fact, the being before even all of this CDE is that a declaration that by a true and proper interpretation of all of the articles in this case 191D, and 1994 of the 1992 Constitution, no person above the age of 65 is eligible for employment in the public service created under Article 191D.
And that is a very interesting point. And since this was filed yesterday, we've heard several arguments about this. This is not a cut and dry matter at all. Yeah. There are gray areas involved here. Because yes, it's true that the Constitution says if a public officer, you retire at 60, under some exigencies, the appointing authority can give you leeway and
for up to 5 good years, actually.
Yes, 2 years at a time. So they can give you 2 years and allow you to serve, but you cannot serve beyond 5 years. So in other words, your maximum is 65 years, which is what Dominic Ayine is stating. But there's a flip side to this, which is a counter argument. Like the Constitution itself says, no, you have to start from the Special Prosecutors Act itself. The Act says Martin Amidu's position is equivalent to that of a Court of Appeal judge. Now, the Constitution says a Court of Appeal judge, in fact, is allowed to serve up unto 70 years. Yeah. Okay. Now, and in fact, from what I understand, that is the act or law that Chris Kakume has cited in his petition, not what Dominic Ayine is citing. But that particular clause in the Constitution says the Court of Appeals judge can serve up to 70 years. Now, I put that question to Dr. Ayine last night. Now, his position on that is, yeah, that's true. However, the Special Prosecutors Act is clear that the man, Martin Amidu, has a non-renewable term of 7 years. So as at the point that you are appointing him, he's not qualified because it's 7 years, mandatory 7-year term, which is non-renewable.
His other argument in his rate states that he should be in office to be given the extension and continuance if he actually clocks the 60. So, for example, a Court of Appeal judge is actually sitting on the case. Then he can stay on to the particular time repeat. And to be clear, it is in Article 1452B, which states that a justice of the Superior Court shall vacate his office in the case of a justice of the Supreme Court or the case of an appeal court on attaining the age of 70 years. So it is 1452B that states that. Now, there's contention really about whether or not the Constitution is a more superior law than the Special Prosecutors Act in the first place, whether or not the precedent that's happened in that particular case when PC Appeal for you went to court and challenged Eduardo Ajiman, then Auditor General, his continual stay in office. And the court ruled in favor of PC Appeal for you. Indeed, the court also explained how this particular element of having to stay in office and continue in office is supposed to play out in a case like that. But these have different circumstances. The court did not say then that when Martin Amidu is coming from outside the, what they call it, office, and we can't have a predecessor in this office because it was created new. So that's another new phenomenon that has to be playing out in this current case. And how the court will have to deal with it will sound very different from what has happened in times past.
Yeah, and if you see on your television the relevant sections of the law that Dominic Ayine is putting, and Raymond and I had said it, that if you look at Article 109, it says a public officer shall accept as otherwise provided in the Constitution retire from public service on attaining the age of 60 years. And the operative word is shall, and they say it's mandatory. And so when you hit 60, you retire. But this is where the exception comes in. Notwithstanding that clause we just read, a public officer who has retired from the public service after attaining the age of 60 years may, where the exigencies of the service require, be engaged for a limited period of not more than 2 years at a time, but not exceeding 5 years in all, and upon such other terms and conditions as the appointing authority shall determine. And in this case, appointing authority is the president. Is the president. And the interesting thing about this, and this will have to play out at the Supreme Court for us to see how this pans out. Lawyers themselves are divided over this. In fact, I've heard a second, a third argument, which is that can you categorize Martin Amidu as a public officer?
Especially when it's a special prosecutor. When the thinking behind special prosecutors in other states, that somebody can be pulled from any bar member, and anybody out there can be made that particular position. Indeed. So that's one of the other points.
The argument I've heard to back that is, this is a vehicle, special purpose vehicle created, you know, through an act of parliament, and the Constitution defines who a public officer is.
Very good.
Okay.
And the public service in and of itself.
Yes.
So that's one interesting part that ought to be understood.
And the argument is, and let's pull up what the Constitution says about public officer. The argument is that if you look at the strict definition, does it really apply to that position of such a prosecutor? And those who hold that view say it does not. And so on the strict sense of that interpretation, they don't see Martin Amidu coming under this particular clause.
But when he has terms of office that's akin to that of an appeal court judge,
yeah.
Which private individual or private office guarantees you terms that the Constitution or this act is supposed to give you, which puts you at par with a court of appeal judge? And for example, you're allowed to have security, like the court of appeal judge. You have to retire on the salary, like the court of appeal judge. And the contest here is like, can even not go up to 70. So how can the terms of the office be that of a public officer, and yet the individual cannot be a public officer?
So it's a very complicated area of the law that I'm sure the Supreme Court will do well to try and deconstruct for us as we move forward. But these are all things that this morning, as we begin the process of trying to vet and find out if Martin Amidu is really qualified and can hold this position, is playing out quite obvious. And if he's just joining us, this is our build-up towards the vetting of Martin Amidu, which is set to begin in the next 15 minutes or so. A few things we've clarified in the last 45 minutes is that the committee, the appointments committee, is currently in a closed-door meeting between the minority and majority sides of the House. Now, an interesting controversy has emerged, and my colleague in Parliament, Elton, confirms that, is the fact that yesterday we got confirmation from the minority chief whip, who is a leading member of the appointments committee, that there's a petition against Martin Amidu. It turns out, from what Elton confirmed, that the chairman of the committee and the clerk of the committee have both confirmed there is no petition formally before the committee to consider. Whether that will change after that meeting, we don't know, but that's where we are. We also know that Martin Amidu had indicated yesterday that if he has not invited you to come for that vetting, don't come. Well, a number of people have shown up, very prominent members of the NDC, but people who really are of the PNDC ilk more than anything else. We've seen former MP Zuma, in fact, Cletus Avoka is also there. And you can read all manner of meanings into it, especially when people speak, if you look at the man's CV, his first reference, two references, first references, Jerry Rawlings, and people we've analyzed to say that it appears there's some dichotomy between the Rawlings loyalists and loyalists to, say, John Dramani Mahama, for example, who are opposed to his appointment, and those who are for him being on the side of Jerry John Rawlings. Raymond.
So, Chapter 14 of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, in Article 190, stipulates what the public services. It says the public services of Ghana shall include a civil service, the judicial service, the audit service, the education service, the prison service, the parliamentary service, the health service, the statistical service, the national fire service, the customs, excise and preventive service, the internal revenue service, the police service, the immigration service, the legal service, and B, public corporations other than those set up as commercial ventures. C, public services established by this constitution. And the D, which Aina is referencing and asking for interpretation, says such other public services as Parliament may by law prescribe. So that is the public service code in our system. So when a public service establishes a unit, the people who are recruited in this case to operate in that service are the public servants.
Now, that is definitely an interesting one to watch. We'll come back and try and break that down a bit more. But let's go back to Parliament, because Elton is joining us again. He's standing by with Cletus Avoka. We've talked a lot about Cletus Avoka, a very good friend of mine, by the way. He used to be the majority leader back in the day. Elton, you're standing by with Cletus Avoka. He must be pretty excited to be there to support a man that I'm pretty sure they go way back to the PNDC days and served this country in many, many ways.
Mr. Cletus Avoka is a former majority leader here in Parliament and is here today for a specific reason to throw his support behind Mr. Martin Amidu. But let me also say that Mr. Martin Amidu is already in the Parliament building. He's in the holding room and awaiting the call of members of the appointment committee for him to now sit and then respond to their questions. Let me speak to Mr. Cletus Avoka, former majority leader. Mr. Avoka, you're welcome to join news.
Thank you very much, Joy.
Before managing to drag you to come and speak to me, you were in that holding room with Mr. Martin Amidu. Is he ready and composed for the task ahead? How will you describe his composure?
Well, he's very well composed for the vetting this morning. This is not the first time that Mr. Martin Amidu is going to be vetted. He has been vetted several times as formerly Minister for Justice and Attorney General, Minister for Interior, extra. So this is not the first time, and he's used to it. And he's taken one of those processes and nothing new. So he's very well composed for the vetting.
We also talk about the person of Mr. Martin Amidu, but you just engaged him some few minutes ago. There's a challenge pending before the Supreme Court. How is he taking this?
Even before we met this morning, we had spoken yesterday briefly about the issue before the Supreme Court. And I think he's taken one of those areas where we are trying to deepen our democracy. We are trying to enhance our constitutional practice. So I think it is in that spirit and in that light that Martin is taking it, and nothing different from that. So he thinks that it's a normal process, and then at the end of the day, everything will come to pass, and hopefully he will take the office.
Apart from this case before the Supreme Court, which the court will eventually rule on it, is there any petition he's considering before appearing before the committee? Has he been given any petition for him to respond to?
And not to the best of my knowledge. He has neither drawn my attention to nor somebody else in the committee or in Parliament House. So I'm not aware of any other petition that is pending with regards to Martin's vetting or appointment. I'm not aware about that.
There's no petition for him to respond when he's here?
Not that there's no petition pending, but I'm not aware if there's any such petition pending. But hopefully I don't think there's any petition pending.
Who is Martin Amidu for somebody who you've known him since the days of the defense of the revolution days?
Yes. Martin, incidentally, people do not know, but we were classmates in the law faculty. We entered the University of Ghana together in 1973 as first-year law students. We were there together for 5 years. So we were called to the bar together in November 1978. And since then, we worked very, very closely. Even before then, or after that, during the revolutionary era, I was a tribunal chairman, and Martin acted first as a deputy regional secretary for the Upper East region, and later on as the acting regional secretary for the Upper East region. And then I think that we have had a very constructive engagement in the past, not just as classmates or schoolmates, but also as working partners. And so I've known Martin very, very well. I think when I left the Minister of Interior, he took over from me. From the Minister of Interior, I came to Parliament as the majority leader and leader of government business, and Martin took over the ministry as the sector minister for the Interior. So we work very closely, and we've known each other very, very well.
The job or the office you will occupy, if eventually approved by Parliament, requires the highest level of integrity. You've known him. Is he up for the job?
Certainly. Martin is always himself. He is firm, he has self-belief, he has self-conviction, and then he doesn't waver. And then he's forthright, and of course he's very honest. So as far as the nature of the work is concerned, I know that Martin is going to be very professional in his outlook. He's going to be very professional in the work that he's going to do, and the people that he's going to handle, nothing short of that, as the way I know him.
And as far as his neutrality is concerned, do you think that the appointing authority may have some influence on him regarding the cases that may be brought before him?
The Mr. Amidu that I know, it's difficult to think that he can be influenced to do things contrary to his conviction, contrary to his understanding of the issues. It will be very, very difficult to persuade him to do something to the contrary. He's a human being, and no human being is infallible. If there's any such thing that happens in the future, maybe it is part of the human fallibility But as far as the nature of the job is concerned, his nature and character is concerned, I am confident that Martin will discharge the responsibilities to the satisfaction of all shades of opinion in this country.
Are you saying all this because you are a cadre? Or is it because you have this firm belief? Because I'm asking this question because the NDC, the party you belong, in a statement signed by the General Secretary, raised issues about his conduct, his irrationality, and all those issues. How do you put the two together?
Everybody everybody has his own features, has his own character, has his own nature. That could be part of his nature, but that is not going to affect him in the work that he's going to do. Martin, as I said, has held several responsibilities in this country. He worked under several people, some of them difficult, some of them amenable in this country. And there have been no such outward outbursts like some seem to be suggesting today. And sometimes when you are convinced about something and then people still want to, or somebody, Martin, if he's convinced about something, you still want to push into the wall, he will kick back. And that is where you may find some fault with him. But that is his nature, and that is what all of us should do. That we should work with our conviction, we should work with our commitment, with dedication. And if you want to derail the cause for which we stand for, then we should oppose it. And if he does that, I don't think that is materially wrong.
Yes. So in this room, apart from you are a cadre, Honorable Azuma.
I'm not here as a cadre.
Of course, but
I've gone beyond that. There are no cadres as such again, but. I'm here because I work with Martin up to the highest level.
Yes,
and then we've known each other since childhood. Of course, as cadres, yes.
I'm asking because...
But it's not, his appointment is not because he's a cadre.
Of course, I know that. But yes. I'm asking because I have seen people who've been with from the NDC, from the days of the AFRC to the PNDC, Naneji Ampofo, Honorable Azuma.
Yeah.
And is it a fact that you are supporting your own? Because clearly, the new generation in the NDC, some doesn't seem to have favor with Mr. Martin Amidu. Is that the case?
No, but
some even blame him for the defeat of the NDC in the 2016 election by virtue of the things you wrote about former President Mahama.
Of understanding and appreciation of events. I think that it may not be surprising that Martin's appointment could be interesting in a disguise, So I don't hold him to anything. And then I should give him the benefit of the doubt that this is a new office that he's going to occupy. And then he's aware about the maneuvers, about the perceptions, some positive, some negative, and the rest of them. And I'm confident that once he has this background, before he enters that new office, if he happens to go there at all, it will bear on him. And then therefore, Martin will live up to expectation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cletus Avoka. And we'll all wait for him to come and then we'll hear his response to some of the questions that will put before him.
I think that he will live up to expectation, knowing him for what he is. Martin will definitely do the best under the circumstances. And we wish him the best of luck.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. He's a former majority leader of Ghana's parliament. And then very soon, the committee members will walk in. Indeed, some have started coming in. Antonio Abaifakabo is a member of the appointment committee. You ready for today's vetting?
Oh, yes, sure, we are ready.
And the question people are asking is whether you have any petition you may consider here.
No, I'm not too sure there's any petition as of this morning against the nominee. There's no petition.
We heard on radio somebody demanding that the committee refer the nominee for psychiatric evaluation. I don't know whether that has come to your attention.
I haven't heard about this person. I haven't heard about this particular issue of psychiatric evaluation. But I think that the nominee is a very competent Ghanaian statesman. We all know him. His exploit in politics has been well documented. So I doubt if anybody will question his stability mentally. This is a very fortified political activist that many of us have known over the years, spanning 30, 40 years. Yeah. So I hope that it looks to be a very good vetting event today.
So what should the public expect from the appointment committee? A well-grilling section?
Well, we're not going to treat Mr. Amidu with kid gloves. I mean, it is not a partisan appointment. It is an appointment for Ghana. The international community, the international organizations are all looking to what this appointment committee will do. But like the president said, this is a this particular appointment is one of the uncharted areas. We've never, it's a new place. We've never really gone into it. We don't know the extent of work. So we really have to go into him so we can understand what mandate he has and what the law says and how he's going to organize to do his work.
We have heard comments that this may travel 2 or 3 days.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not too sure about it. It depends. It really depends on the respondents too. We can have questions, and if he decides to answer them with follow-ups, will eventually emerge. And there are so many things that go into appearing before the appointments committee, and especially for such a novel appointment with the kind of person who the president has nominated. Clearly, there's a lot of questions that are agitating our minds. I have a dozen of questions that I would like to elicit some answers from Mr. Amidu.
Can you share with some?
Well, I can't share many of my questions with you because it's taken me the last 2-3 weeks to do a lot of research, to really pin him down to major issues and public comment. Don't forget, this is a man who speaks his mind. And so he's got so many articles, so many epistles he has put out in respect of public issues in this country. And maybe now we have an opportunity in a very guarded environment to really question and understand what the thought process, what agitates his mind, what is he really out there to do, what is his general ambition, what does he want to do, what name does he want to leave for the office that he's holding, So all these issues are surely coming up.
My final question will be, is the committee at this stage blind to the challenge that has been filed in court?
Well, what is happening in court is a completely different issue. What we are doing here is to access his competence to deliver on the job. I think these are two separate issues. They are two separate issues, and the committee's work will proceed irrespective of what is happening in court. What is happening in court have no consequence to the event that we are conducting today, which is to assess the candidate, to look at the nominee's CV, to assess his competence, agitate his mind, and try to tease out some answers from him.
Thank you very much, Anthony Abai-Fakabo. And the chairman of the committee just walked in, meaning that the process will start very soon, and then we'll get to know Mr. Martin Amidu's response to some of the questions that will be put before him. But for now, Evans, Mr. Amidu is in the holding room, and very soon he'll be ushered into the main chamber, if you like, for the session to start. As to when, we don't know. But the chairman of the committee, Honorable Joe Osewusu, who is the first deputy speaker of parliament, just took his seat, and some members came in and went out. And very soon, the expectation is that this will start, and then we'll get to know more as far as Martin Amidu is concerned, as far as his suitability for the job he's been nominated for as special prosecutor is also concerned. Evans.
Elton, thank you very much. And another confirmation from another member on the majority side on this committee that they still don't have an official copy of this petition. And I really suspect that we are going to see this division play out once all members of the committee, both minority and majority, sit for the vetting to commence. But let's quickly go onto the phone lines. Let's speak to private legal practitioner Martin Amidu, who joins us on the telephone line right now. Mr. Amidu, thank you for your time here on this special edition of News Desk. Let me ask you, you are of the view that it's not as cut and dry to describe Martin Amidu as a public officer?
Yes. Within the intendment of Article 199, it's not cut and dry because from my reading of the long title of the Special Procedural Act, it says that Parliament was creating a specialized agency. Evan, Parliament said specialized agency. Parliament knew that there is a public service, and we have those examples: police service, Ghana Education Service, civil service, and so on and so forth. So if Parliament was going to create public service, I'm sure certainly they would have said public service. So to the extent that they said no, they are creating a specialized agency, my thinking is that Article 199 does not come into play at all. Because you see, it's basic that different words have different meanings. If you wanted to create, if they were going to create a public service, to the extent that if you open Article 190, you will get more than 10 examples of public services. So if Parliament was going to create a public service, I'm sure they would have had enough wisdom to say they are doing public services. But they said they are creating a specialized agency. So that's what I'm thinking Article 199 shouldn't come in. And besides, they also even stated that the terms and conditions of the special prosecutor should be that of the justice of the Court of Appeal. And the justice of the Court of Appeal retires at 70. You say, So that's another reason why I hold that opinion.
Yes, but if he enjoys the same benefits, and in fact his position is equivalent to that of the justice of the Court of Appeal, it begs the question from your argument: is the justice of the Court of Appeal a public officer?
Oh, well, you can use begging the question, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you must beg the question. What it is that, you see, in drafting, we use some of these statements to avoid repetition. So, what happens is that if you say he has the same terms and conditions as the justice of the Court of Appeal, it means that you avoid repeating all the terms. So, a justice of the Court of Appeal, yes, a public officer, but as I stated, with different terms, retiring at 70. So, if Parliament passes a law and says that have the same terms, I don't think that if we say somebody is a justice of, it's a public officer, if a justice of the Court of Appeal is a public officer, then that means that special prosecutor should be retiring at 65. No, we can't use that. Rather, if you ask me, is a justice of the Court of Appeal a public officer, and I say yes, then it means that, okay, so can Parliament create a new law to say that the special prosecutor should retire at 70? Then I say yes.
Well, those are interesting thoughts. I'm grateful that you joined us. That's Martin Amidu. There's a private legal practitioner with his own thoughts on this controversy. Ultimately, the Supreme Court will have to make a decision. I'm grateful, sir, that you joined us. And if we're getting footage from Parliament now, it's obvious from what we're seeing that the vetting of Martin Amidu is just about to start, because Nelton confirmed the members of the Appointments Committee are now done with their closed session, and they are just about beginning. In fact, the chairman of the committee, Joseph Wusu himself, is currently seated, and you can see the live visuals from the Appointments Committee room there. And shortly, the vetting will begin, because Martin Amidu himself is already in Parliament, in the holding room, exchanging pleasantries with those he's already invited to be part of his vetting today. The Attorney General herself is also there. Of course, remember that under the law establishing the Office of Special Prosecutor, she nominates, the President appoints. She nominates, gives the name to the President. The President then accepts and makes an appointment, which then is forwarded to Parliament for consideration and for subsequent approval. And so she's really, and again, if you look at the Special Prosecutors Act, Martin Amidu must regularly file reports to the Attorney General's office. In fact, after concluding every case, and there's a stipulated time which she has to file that report, constantly to the Attorney General's office. And so that's why she's there, obviously, to support the man she'll be working very, very closely with. And people forget that Martin Amidu's position only exists because Gloria Kufu agreed to cede part of her powers to him.
Yes, Article 88 of the Constitution rests all prosecutorial powers in the Attorney General. The Attorney General can, in the case of the police and other institutions of state, give you some powers to use in this case. In fact, what we sought to do with the Public Prosecutors Act was to take powers from the Attorney General and yet insulate the person operating with those powers from the Attorney General's control. And it was a very difficult way of going about it. The ideal thing many people suggested was to amend it and insert the special prosecutor as an exception, an exemption, and as a control on the Attorney General's powers from the beginning. But that was not done. They found a way around it, and that's where we are today.
That other suggestion would have mean amending the Constitution.
Itself, yes, and that's an
been
entrenched
longer.
position.
Yeah.
It would have required a referendum to actually go through that process. But really, a referendum like we seek to do in the course of this year for the State Assembly and also the regional region's creation is going to be a very long process, which many in government were not willing to look at currently. Now, you were talking about what's likely the majority's stance on this particular matter. It was interesting that even after the meeting, so if I had a copy, you didn't have a copy, in the meeting, closed door meeting, I could have shared it with you.
Yeah.
Then we could have called the candidate involved and say, have you seen this?
Yeah.
Can we proceed to do this the next day? Or it sounds to me that that issue surrounding that petition is going to be put to rest completely and may not come up at all, not even in this betting, but in subsequent ones, because it's pretty clear that the majority of those on the other side, so far as they say they've not seen it, are not willing to entertain the possibility that you have seen it. Because, of course, they want to see it from the clerk's office and all of those other institutions of state that is going to play out.
But it's interesting. I find it impossible to believe that the minority side will go into the meeting, the closed session meeting before the hearing begins,
And will not show a copy.
and not bring that up. I'm pretty sure it came up.
Yes.
But from what we heard from Anthony Kabu, who is a member of the appointments committee, the majority side still haven't.
They haven't seen it. Anyway, it's interesting how they're going to play around this.
That is going to be interesting. You are live on Joy 99.7 FM. You are also live on, obviously, the Joy News channel here as we build up to the to history unfolding before our eyes, because the vetting of the special prosecutor has never happened in history. But the office has never existed. It was just recently created. And so this is the first time it's going to happen. And it's going to be very interesting, pretty explosive one. We anticipate it to be so. We'll be going to Parliament shortly once it begins. You want to stay with us for that. If you just join us, a few things we have been dealing in the lead up to this is the fact that the petition that was confirmed yesterday by the minority chief whip, it's apparently not formally before the committee, the appointments committee, and we've heard from the minority members on the committee. A minority member of the committee who say is not aware of it. And so we see how the minority and majority sides will deal with this once the sitting begins. Plus, again, a confirmation that the hearing will go ahead regardless of the suit that had been filed by former Deputy Attorney General and MP for Boga East, Dominic Ayine. The hearing will go ahead. Martin Amidu has also a third issue, if you just join us, has also invited a whole host of NDC stalwarts, those you can describe as, founding members of the party. They were there at the PNDC days. Cletus Avoka, former MP Zuma and co, high-profile individuals in the party, but including cadres, have been invited to his vetting. That in itself tells you everything you need to know about that man. He is really a die-hard believer in the principles of probity and accountability. Those principles that were instrumental in the founding of the PNDC, of which Martin Amidu, of which Jerry John Rawlings led. And no wonder Jerry John Rawlings is his first reference on the list on the CV.
These are the same principles the NDC's constitution says, which are those of Jerry Rawlings, which are the foundation principles for the party today.
Yeah.
So you cannot be NDC without believing in these principles. You cannot be NDC without referencing these principles.
Yeah.
And, well, Martin Amidu insists that they should run even today. The people we have seen there, Cletus Avoka, all are people who still believe that those foundational principles are the ones that should run the party today. Of course, that does not mean that they believe that the former President Rawlings still has the same role to play in the party today. So it is also a party issue generated into a national issue, playing out in the appointment of a party man who in some part criticized the party. So, for example, if Mr. Rawlings were to be appointed the special prosecutor today, which is not impossible, it would have been a similar play out because he has said things that Martin Amidu has said and has done things that they think Martin Amidu has done in ways that the NDC and some members today have problems with. But it's the same NDC, its leadership that is asking that Mr. Martin Amidu be dealt with properly, not solidarity.
Yeah.
So, a party that he belongs to, a party based on whose foundation he believes in.
I must say that the point about a party he belongs to is a contested one.
Really? I thought,
it's a contested
you
one
cannot drag me before your disciplinary committee if I'm not a part of your party.
No, but that's the point that he's made. That's what I'm saying is a contested. Whether he's a member of the NDC, it's a contested one. From what the national organizer told us when Martin Amidu was appointed, when I spoke to him, he says when Martin Amidu came before the national committee, his point was that his allegiance is not to the NDC constitution,
but to the Constitutional
Republic of Ghana. And that he doesn't consider himself a member of the NDC. And that his allegiance is to the national constitution. And by extension, they believe if you pay no heed to our constitution, how can you claim to be a member? Because if you're a member of an institution, you have to, out of necessity, respect and operate within the limits of that organization's rules.
But he is saying that there's a more superior power.
Yeah, but that's the point.
It doesn't mean that I totally reject our constitution.
No, his point wasn't that I respect the party's constitution, but I hold the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana superior to that. He simply says, in total disregard for the party's constitution, and this is all reporting what we're told. We don't know whether that's a fact or not. That his total allegiance is to the national constitution. And so, in fact, they even question the claim that he is a founding member of the NDC. Kofi Adams goes ahead to use the phrase that he was there at the foundation of the party, at the founding of the party, was there, right? But in the legal, strictly legal sense, he's not a founding member because he says
if we go to
the Electoral Commission and look at his name isn't part of the list. Okay. So all these things that if we go to Martin Amidu's own webpage, he describes himself as a founding member of the party.
Yeah.
But I'm saying all these things are now a matter of contest. Why? Because there's one side of the NDC opposed to him being a special prosecutor for obvious reasons. Because they believe, and they've said it, he's vindictive, and that he's shown in the past that he will go after a people of NDC stock. And remember, Martin Amidu had publicly asked for the NDC to be voted out of power.
That's true.
In fact, he recorded a video pleading with the public to vote John Mahama out of office.
A party that he's supposed to be part of as of the time that he was actually making these videos.
Exactly. That is where the fear emanates, that this is a man who simply does not like the NDC the way it is currently constituted.
But if you remember...
And will probably would like to use his office to purge it.
Very good. But if you remember, when he first spoke to Dr. Dominic Aine about this particular appointment, the 9th of the appointment, he said Martin Amidu is partisan.
Exactly.
It is a similar point that Roxanne Dafiapo made about he been in this position.
Which informed his position to oppose him.
Okay.
Because the law establishing the Special Prosecutor's Office clearly states that the person who holds that position cannot be partisan.
But if he is partisan, also as of that time, partisan for the NPP or the NDC?
NDC.
But if he is not a member of your party, if he holds no proper allegiance to the party,
that is why
how can he be partisan in favor of the party?
Petition is alleging that he is applied to be a member of the MPP.
Well, that's interesting to know.
Yeah. By the way, this is Dominic Ayine, the man who filed that suit, speaking to me yesterday, explaining why he took the decision. He took that decision to go to court, but also indicating to us his own expectation of what should happen today once that suit has been filed. Listen to it.
Of office is distinguished from the service conditions. So he will be entitled to the emolument, privileges, and facilities available to a court of appeal judge, but not the same tenure of office. So it's a statutory term of 7 years. And when Parliament enacted Section 18.3, Parliament did not provide for a minimum. All right, we actually debated, if you go back to the Hansard, we actually debated the issue of the tenure. And it was that he should be given a tenure that allows him to outlive, the mandatory 4-year term of, an elected president. So if he's given 4 years, that will not conform with the statutory intent. And I have to say that Court of Appeal justices don't retire at age 73. So if he's given 7 years, he will be retiring at 73, over and above the age of even of retirement of the CJ and Court of Appeal judges.
But in simple terms, what you're saying is the Special Prosecutors Act gives him a statutory tenure of 7 years. Yet yes. his equivalent, his position equivalent to Court of Appeal, where the Constitution says they can hold an office on to 70. Now he's 66. Doesn't it also stand to reason that he can hold the office as of today? He qualifies. When he turns 70, he simply gives up that position.
No.
I mean, as of today, does it qualify or not?
Let me refer you to the case of Apia Ofori and Attorney General. That was a case in which PCO Apia Ofori took this matter before the Supreme Court, arguing that Section 10 of the Audit Service Act was unconstitutional because it had provided for a mandatory retirement age of 60 years for the Auditor General. And his argument was that the Constitution equated the Auditor General to a Court of Appeal judge. And therefore, the Auditor General was entitled to retire at age 70, just like the position that you have taken. And the Supreme Court, by a majority of 6-3, answered that question in the negative and said that if the Constitution makers had intended to confer an enhanced retirement age on the Auditor General, it would have said so. They would have said so explicitly in the Constitution. Not having said so, Section 10 of the Audit Service Act was in compliance with Article 199(1) of the Constitution. And as a public service office, the Auditor General could not, retire at age 70. He had to retire at 60. So there's judicial precedent for the position that I am taking.
And this goes to court when?